Hi, this is the Zoo Man again, and what I want to talk to you today about is on a previous episode, I had talked about what kind of separates me from the broadcasters of, of the United States, and we talk about the left media, the right media, Fox News, and CNN, who I call the Cartoon News Network, and CNNBC. Also, really the mainstream media who really doesn't cover the news. They they are told what the news is, and they just reiterate what the people on the top tell them what the news is, and they just spew it out. But it's really not the news. You could tell when they go in and speak to Pinocchio Joe, who's in the White House, but really is not presidential in any stretch of the imagination. He's just really on strings, and that's why I call him Pinocchio Joe. Anyway, I talked about if I was an editor and I was handing out news stories, really what a news story should be. Now, if people were really journalists, this would be a typical story, and why nobody's covering this is beyond me. But there's been some scientific studies in the last, I would say, last 5 years, and this is extremely important. There are a lot of people talking about the impact on the environment and what the environmentalists are calling very alarming. And it is, really, if you think about it, it's what the plastics are doing to the environment, both in the oceans of the world and really inland. Because plastics, as you know, and even if you don't know, they cannot be filtered out. They get so small, so minute, that the smallest sea creatures, they can't distinguish the smallest microns, even smaller than microns. They're so minute. They're like angstroms. I don't even know if you know what an angstrom is, but angstroms are so small that amoebas are mistaken them for seafood. And so they ingest these minute plastic particles. And at any rate, long story short, it's poisoning all the seafood, because once it starts at the bottom of the food chain like that, it then poisons everything up the ladder. And if you know anything from your high school biology, once that happens, everything above it gets poisoned. That's in the oceans, and everything in the sea gets poisoned that way. Similarly, this is happening on the land as well, because it can't be filtered in the land. So all this plastic, it cannot be put in a landfill. It's put in a landfill, but it's so light and airy, it gets floated through the air. It can't be filtered because it goes through the smallest of filters, and it just floats through the air, and it gets everywhere. If you're not familiar with this, I just suggest you Google it, look it up. It's poisoning and polluting everything. So while all these environmentalists keep preaching air pollution, they keep talking about carbon emissions, they keep harping on all this stuff, they never address, plastics. And I've come to the conclusion the reason they don't talk about this is the same reason why cannibals don't eat their own people. Because the biggest culprit of this is Coca Cola and some of the other Pepsi Cola, all the big soft drink companies changed from bottles to plastics, whatever, 4 decades ago, 5 decades ago. People, this is an easy fix. I didn't say it was, it wouldn't take money and it would take some time, but this should have been fixed 4 decades ago. The reason it wasn't fixed is because Coke, Pepsi, all these people are greedy. And they probably paid off senators and whatever, politicians. And as you know, politicians are crooked. And if I was a betting man, I would say most of these politicians were Democrats. I'm sure there were some Republicans too, but why isn't it being fixed now? Why isn't it being addressed now? I don't know. Maybe everybody's too busy looking at the Arctic Circle. But, you know, I remember as a kid, I would recycle bottles for pocket change. This part of the economy is easy to fix. I mean, recycling bottles and washing them out, steaming them, disinfecting them, and putting them back in to recirculation is easy. And I can tell you as a consumer, all soft drinks taste better in glass. They're colder, more refreshing than plastic. Why doesn't anybody look into this? Why aren't journalists looking into this? This is a great piece of investigative journalism. This is the Zoo Man. Wake up, America!